Well, I played some games.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, tell me about her story.
Her story. Okay. So this is a game. I was looking at Game Pass, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to play Friday night on stream.
Yeah.
And I was looking at Game Pass because this game, Immortality, is on there. It's like a full motion video game. And then I saw, Her Story is on there. It's an FMV game as well. And it said like, it's leaving Game Pass in like 4 days. So I was like, okay, how long does it take to play through this game? And it's like it says like on true achievements, it says you can complete the game, get all the achievements in like 2.5 hours. So I was like, oh, okay, I can obviously beat this on stream, right?
Yeah.
So basically the game is, I didn't really know much about it except that it was an FMV like mystery kind of.
Yeah.
So basically what it is you are sitting at a police terminal.
Oh, yeah.
And you can there's a search thing where you just type in a word and it searches a video database of all these interviews they did with this woman. And you have to piece together the story of what happened, her story, by typing in keywords. So it has like, there's like README file that it has on the desktop. So you can click on that and it tells you about how the system works. And it's basically like a regular search thing. So if you want to find the word crime, you type in crime. But if you want to narrow it down, you say like crime and murder. And it'll only show you the video clips where she says both those words, right?
Yeah.
So it starts out auto-filled with murder, right?
Yeah.
So you search that and then like 5 clips. Well, it shows you 5 clips, but there's like 18 clips, but it only shows you the first 5 because you're restricted or whatever.
You're a rookie.
Well, you have restricted access. So you can watch those 5 videos. And then if you want to learn more, you can do murder and type in like Simon. He's the guy that's dead.
Yeah.
And it'll bring you up the clips. So you narrow it down and see different clips, right? But as you play the video, she'll say something like, oh, he goes to this pub called The Rock. So then you type in The Rock, and it brings up anytime she says The Rock, and then it'll be like, oh, The Rock, that's the pub where it's owned by Doug and Eleanor. And then you're like, okay, I have 2 more names, Doug. It'll bring up all the clips of Doug, Eleanor, whatever. Yeah. And as you work your way through it, you learn more and more, and you'll be like, oh, I never would have thought to type this word in because, like, why?
Yeah.
So she starts talking all about fairy tales, and you type in fairy tale and it brings up all these clips, whatever. And as you go through it, it basically, from what I can piece together of these clips is, there was a woman who gave birth to a daughter named Hannah. And during the childbirth, the videos were recorded in like the 90s, right?
Yeah.
So during childbirth of Hannah, she also had a twin named Eve, but the woman that delivered the daughters said that Eve was stillborn, and it was in the 1970s. So she was like, I'll take care of this. Don't worry about it. And she took Eve away, but Eve was actually alive.
Yeah.
And she raised her as like her own daughter. But then later, Hannah saw Eve and they were like, well, it was like looking in a mirror. Like she looks just like me.
Yeah.
And she basically either the woman that took Eve died or she ran away, but she went and hid in the attic of Hannah's house. Mm-hmm. So they were both living in the house together and they pretended to be one person basically. So like if, they went, if one of them was good at something at school, they would take that test. So if it was like math test day and Eve was good at math, she would pretend to be Hannah, go take the math test and then whatever. Right. Yeah. But then it was like, they were different. So like Eve was Hannah was shyer, Eve was more outgoing. So when there would be like Hannah would like a boy, Eve would have to go and like sort of seduce the boy, Yeah. But then, and the boys all liked Eve more because she's basically a little bit of a slut. And Hannah was like a virgin, but Eve would sleep with them all.
Yeah.
So, but then a boy met Hannah and really liked Hannah, and she didn't have to like have Eve seduce him. And then Hannah wanted this boy to herself, basically. And then it kind of like they had a bunch of rules they did, like, to way they would work their little scheme,
Yeah.
And she wanted to be separate when she had this guy named Simon. But then Simon would be like, he knew something was going on because they still would switch places. So he would try to trap them by giving like a gift of a mirror to the one girl and then giving another one to the other girl because he knew what was going on. And then he got killed by accident by one of them, Eve or Hannah. It's hard to tell who. And they were going away. She was getting arrested for murder, basically. And then at the end, you find out that you are their daughter searching for the thing.
Oh.
You're the daughter, Sarah, looking at it. But then it's also like, is Hannah and Eve, are they actually two separate people? Because it's kind of like maybe they're just a split personality.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's very like sort of, left up to what you think about what's happening. The main problem with the game is there's no way to know that you've sort of reached the end of what you can find.
Mm-hmm.
There is this thing that basically it brings up a screen that's like, it looks like, you remember when you would defrag your hard drive and it would be all red and they'd move the green dots automatically? It brings up a thing like that where it says like archive missing. Huh. And I'm thinking to myself, like, as I'm going through the game, it's changing and the dots are moving around. But that's what is a representation of you playing videos. So when you play a video, it turns the dot green, basically. Yeah. So you know how much you've seen. But I didn't take it. Excuse me. I didn't take it like that. I took it like, it's sort of as you go through the game, it's unlocking this other archive because it says archive missing, right?
Yeah. So
I'm thinking it's fixing it as you play, which is not the way it works, right?
Yeah.
So by the end, I'm like, I'm trying all these things. I'm not learning anything new. So I basically was like, well, let me Google it and to see what's going on. And it was like from Google, basically you log out of the computer and the credits play, you've beaten the game.
Yeah.
So I did that. The credits play. I'm like, okay, I've reached the end of the game, right? Once you've beaten the game, it unlocks the ability to type in like these codes that'll unlock videos. So if you do like admin_random, it'll just play a random video and it'll play like the ones you haven't seen, right? So I did that, and the videos I didn't watch added nothing to the story. So like there was a lot of her asking like, oh, I'll take my coffee black, and that's the video.
Okay.
So I didn't see any of those. And then there's a whole section where you can see she's hooked up to a lie detector. So I was like, oh, I wonder what the answers to her questions or what the questions are. You never hear the questions that are asked.
Huh.
It's only her responses. Yeah. And it was literally 10 videos of her going, no, or yes, or no. So it was like, okay, I basically saw every possible video.
Yeah.
But there was no like indicator like, hey, you've reached the end of the game, right?
Yeah, interesting. Weird.
Yeah, there was a little chat thing that popped up, and you can talk to some other person that's in the police area that let you come down there. And basically, they'll ask, like, hey, did you find everything you want? And you say no, and then you can keep searching. Or you say yes, and then they'll say, like, okay, well, do you understand now why your mom did what she did? And you can say yes or no. And if you say yes or no, it doesn't really matter. Then you log out, and that's the end of the game, right?
Huh.
So it was interesting. There was one freaky section though where it is like you're looking at a monitor of a computer, and it's got like, the light reflection on it and everything of like the overhead lights. But there'll be a part where the lights will like sort of buzz, and then you can see the outline of like you looking at the screen. And the first time that happened, I was like, oh, what the hell is going on? Because I'd been playing for like an hour or something, and then all of a sudden this came up out of nowhere, and I was like, oh, what the hell? So I enjoyed the story. It was very interesting, but it was just kind of like you don't know when you've reached the end. And you don't ever get a like satisfactory conclusion. I mean, you sort of build what you think of it, right? You gotta
make your own conclusion.
There was one other thing that kind of drove me crazy a little bit. There's a part where she's like, you can tell at the start they're trying to pretend they're one person.
Yeah.
But eventually it gets to be like there's two of them, right? So there's a part where Hannah is just like, oh my God, why am I talking about Eve? Like, why did I say anything about Eve? This is so dumb. And she leans down on the table and she starts tapping on the table like a code, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, is that Morse code, right? So I try to type it into a Morse code translator. Nothing happens. So I'm like, okay, it's not Morse code. So then later, she's talking about how when they were kids, they would put secret messages in the cat's bell, and the cat would run to her and they could take the message of the bell. Or they would do this thing called the knock code, where you could knock, and it's a code that they read about in World War II, right?
Yeah.
And then they type out it. She does another thing on the table, tapping it out, right? So I was like, oh, the knock code. Okay. So I Google it. It's a real thing. And how it works is there's like a grid basically, and the first number you tap out is like the column, and the second number is the row. So if you type out like 1-1, that's A, 1-2 is B, etc. So I go back to the old video and I write down her like numbers right, and I translate it, and she's tapped out like love you as a code. So then I'm like, okay, are they like not two separate people, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go to the second one she taps out, and it's like 10 letters long, right? And I translate it, and it says like BYDHANNAN. And I'm like, by D Hannon? I'm like, well, maybe I wrote down the letters wrong. Like, Hannon should be Hannah, probably, right? So I do it again, and I keep checking it, and I'm like, no, I'm doing it right. I'm doing it right. I'm like, what is this secret message I'm typing into the search thing? Like, what does it mean? Nothing's coming up. So I'm like, I must have wrote down my numbers wrong. So I go again, listen to it again. I'm like, no, I got it right. So then at the end, I'm like, well, what was I doing wrong here? Like, that didn't lead to anything. So then I Google it, and it's like, oh, she just tapped it out wrong. It was supposed to say bye, Hannah.
Oh.
But she did it the wrong code or whatever. And it's like, wow, why didn't they refilm it? Like, Jesus Christ, man. I spent all this time trying to translate this message that I thought was wrong, but I had it right. But they did it wrong. Anyways, it was an interesting game anyways. So.
Yeah.
But I'm in a kind of like sorry, go ahead.
That would be a interesting, because you have to draw your own conclusions, it'd be an interesting thing for schools to like do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
discuss.
It's not too like, it's not really like that graphic or anything like that. They do talk about like sex a little bit, but they don't like talk about it. They just say like, oh yeah, we had sex or whatever.
Yeah.
But it was interesting, it'd be good for like, sort of
just like a case study for like a high school or whatever.
Just like showing you have to think about, you can't just take
critical thinking.
Yeah, critical thinking, exactly. They don't teach that at school anymore. But yeah, I liked it. I've been on an FMV kind of kick recently. Like I played 5 Dates. Yeah. Enjoyed that. And then I was going to play this other one, that Immortality, which is the game that this guy that did Her Story. It's like his third game basically. So
yeah, I'm
interested to play him. It's just interesting sort of premise basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked it. I would recommend it as an interesting thing to check out anyways.
Yeah.
And then I played a little Raft.
Yes.
Played a couple hours of Raft for a secret project.
Ooh, secret project.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, can't say too much about it here yet, but something's coming with that. And
nice.
It was fun, interesting, didn't die, killed the shark,
Very good, very good.
It was probably the funnest time I played with the Raft, really. So I played it for like 8 hours, and every time I was just like, But yeah, this was pretty good, so... When we know more about that, we'll let you know what exactly is going on with the Raft anyways.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.